Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Michigan here with another battle breakdown for you. And in this battle I am going to showcase how I like to play the first half of Himmelsdorf, at least at the time of this recording. Now it should be noted that these strats change all the time. This is the one I've used for the past week, so by now, by the time you're watching this probably isn't the case anymore. So how do I like to play this south side? Now this cap has a very interesting way of being able to play it, at least the cap that we're attacking, which is, as we posit, as we do a lot of the time in battle breakdowns, is that it only has a couple of entrances. If you take a look at my mouse over here on the right, we have our one entrance down where the A and B line meet on the 4-5. We have a central artery here that goes up the 5 line, and then we have two parallel roads, one on the A line and one on the B line. Now, what this position, or what this cap also has for attacking, as well as defending, is you have a little pocket here, which is holes that you get similar to this area along the golf line, but you get it by the cap circle. So now if the enemy team decides to take 2-3, they can utilize this, these windows here to help defend against the cap circle, though it is a little weak against the A5 corner, as there isn't a window up there by the red line. And if the enemy team does decide to go 0 and take hill, that spot becomes a little less useful, as any tank defending is going to have to wedge themselves in the back of A4, a very common camping spot just over there behind those buildings. So how are we going to play this? Now we're against Inwu here, which is a pretty decent clan. We're fairly well matched, a lot of great players on that team, a lot of good callers in that clan as well. So we're going to play this fairly similarly to how we would play it on a toss-up. Now, this is not a toss-up, I don't believe, or it may be, but regardless, we are on attack here. So we've taken a look at the enemy lineup and noted that they have a lot of heavies. So what I'm looking at to start as a caller, and I'm actually going to expand this so that you guys can all see the vehicles. We don't need to see people's names, but that way it'll just get in the way. So I'm going to evaluate as to how many tanks I think the enemy team might bring here. Now, I don't think they're going to bring any. However, if I'm thinking about what they could possibly bring, I would say the 2 IS-4s and the 2 790. I don't think that they have any other tanks that they would realistically bring on hill. Now, that's something you have to remember as a caller, is that sometimes callers do unrealistic things to great success, or sometimes to pretty poor success. But it's not worth planning for the unexpected. If you plan for the unexpected, you're going to jack up your whole strat. Take a look, make a reasonable guess as to who you think is going where on the enemy team, and plan for that. So, I figure 2 IS-4s, 2 7.9, worst thing on the hill. And those are all fairly slow vehicles. So I believe that 3 chieftains should be able to counter that quite easily. Now that's the first half. And the reasoning for that is the IS-4s will probably still be at about Charlie 0, as the chieftains are about F0. So that means that the chieftains can probably get to the ridge and keep those IS-4s and 2 7.9 for coming up. So that's that part solved. Now let's take a look at one of the most important parts of this map, which is Banana Road. You need to secure Banana Road, and that is going to come in handy for the strat once we get it developed. So we're going to send 2 E3s. Now it's very important that you don't overclog the Banana Road. Now, sometimes enemy teams do push down there, and it causes problems. But that's a fairly rare strat, and it's not worth dedicating 5, 6, even 7 vehicles to prevent that, because you will severely weaken other points. So we're just going to send 2 E3s. Only one of them can sit on that corner at a time. The other one can back them up in case they get unlucky, or, it's just not their game, and then they can cover each other. Now, we're also going to send tanks middle. Middle's another important part of this map. Being able to get tanks along this road and even pushing into the D line here, and it just touches the Echo line, means that you can deny the enemy this entire road. And then we're going to send everything else to line. So, what's the strat here? Like I was saying at the beginning, this is a very nice cap to attack. And that means what we can do is, and while this cap circle isn't actually this small, it actually extends to the corner here. You can see the corner right on the left side of Bravo 6. And it also extends right to the wall here where A6 meets A7. What that means is you can put the enemy team in a predicament, especially their caller, who's going to have to pick where to drop the artillery strike. Does he drop it on the corner, or does he drop it on A6? Either way, the goal is to get multiple tanks in each corner so that the enemy team cannot reliably reset the cap without forcing their way in. And as you see here, these windows and everything else is going to come into play. So that's enough pausing. And strats don't always turn out the way you want them to, and it's super important as a caller to be able to make decisions and change your call on the fly. Because if you don't, if you're too rigid, you're going to try and force something that just isn't going to work. So right off the bat, we have a problem. And that is that the castle here, or the railroad house, is a direct counter to anybody pushing up. And let's take a look at another problem. We have the 260 up here at F6. We then have 3 heavies behind, and then we have 2 lagging behind. I don't remember if it was a miscall, or, I got somebody turned around, or maybe, somebody wasn't paying attention. It doesn't matter, because at this point, we just need to get everybody together. And those IS-4s aren't going to be easy to dig out. However, the benefit of having these 2 IS-4s here is that now we know our chieftains, who have now made it to K0, are going to have free reign of that hill. And so that means that they can eventually come down the 0 line and sandwich these tanks. Now, my calling style is blast into position, go as fast as I can, and then, dig some trenches, and drag the enemy team out. If we can find a weak point, we're taking it. We're not going to wait for the enemy to be able to reinforce that. So now we have our 4 heavies middle. We've got 3 IS-7s and a 277. And I'm going to stay zoomed out here because my roll isn't going to be that great. So what I did call was we want 1 chieftain. You can see my ping. We want 1 chieftain in C3. And basically what we have there is just windows like we have behind us. And that means that whoever's in this pocket can get some nice shots in. It's not the end-all, be-all. However, it is a very useful position. However, there's going to be a miscommunication. And all of the heavies are going to cut inside. Now, why is that a problem? And you can see they actually stall here. The issue with that is we risk getting outflanked if the IS-4s push, because everybody's trying to get out of the way of the IS-4s in the windows. What we really need to do is push the IS-4s and clear them out. So what we're going to use is we're going to use these 3 277s, who I initially wanted to go up to the middle as I was talking to get on corner of the cap, and we're going to ensure that we overwhelm the 2 line. Now, something else is those E3s. I'm pretty sure they're going to be sitting here at B4. However, somebody's going to have to take the hit, and as a caller, sometimes I have to. So we're going to take a look, and there we go. There's the E3s. So I'm going to take 1 hit. Now, I'm going to dump that arty strike off, and if we take a look at the placement there, the goal is to keep that back E3 out. We want to do as much damage to that middle E3, and we want to keep that 279 from being able to hide behind that rubble pile. So if he doesn't want to sit in the arty strike, he's going to have to pull forward. And while it looked like I dropped that at split second, when you've dropped hundreds and hundreds of arty strikes, it really does only take half a second. And a lot of callers will pass arty strikes off to their players, and same with the Inspire. And there is a benefit to that, which is you don't need to worry about dying before that strike gets off or inspiring teammates around you. But the negative is I know what we're trying to do here, or the benefit of keeping it is I know what we're trying to do, and that is we need to clear these IS-4s out. So I want to make sure that this arty strike best benefits this move. So by keeping those E3s moving and the 279 moving where they can't reliably get shots because they're being pressured by the artillery strike, we can minimize the amount of damage that tanks are going to take getting across. Now, obviously, I just turned my butt to 2 E3s and a 279, which isn't the greatest. However, this may help prevent further vehicles from getting hit. Now we're going to take a look here. So, next section of the call. The last thing we want right now is for this group to push into it. And why is that? You could say, well, they have an overmatch. We want to minimize the amount of damage we take. So let's take a look at the overmatch here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles on 2. This should be an easy win. The goal here is to clear out the IS-4s, and then all of us together can take the E3s. The enemies have put themselves in a position where they can no longer support each other because of this very large train station wall here. We can push right in against the IS-4s, and there's nothing these E3s can do about it. So all this group needs to do is just hang out. And this is something that is very, very difficult to get across to players even playing with them for years, is there is no need to take damage in this situation. Now, obviously, they're going to play this well. However, there's always little bits of improvement we can make. So we're going to keep this going. And as we're clearing up these IS-4s, I'm going to talk about the E3s. So what is the role of the E3s here as they come in contact? Well, the E3s, I have told at the beginning, do not push past D7. Now, why is that? Well, what's past D7? This crossroad here, if you push up, you will get outflanked. So what we want the E3s to do is to suck as many tanks down as we can. Now, the Chieftains have also taken that backside. And the Chieftains, I don't even think I call them to come down. However, they've taken a look at the enemy team, and they've noticed everything's lit. So if everything's lit, currently, then the only tank that can be back there is that mouse. So they have a 3 versus 1, and they have a little ramp right in front of where Gunny is, where one of the Chieftains can stay hull down. So now that we've cleared out this area, we still have 2 tanks in the train yard, but you can see Ripmaster and Reese have pushed along the other side, and what that forces the E3s to do is back off. You can see I have Inspire up as well, and what we're going to do now is we are not going to waste any time. This is what I mentioned earlier. Let's take a look. Our E3s are outmatched. They are backing up, and they're doing a great job at handling those mice. The last thing we want to do is just sit here, and I get it, there's 2 E3s on the side. Sit here, let those super heavies overtake the mice, and then have them come down this road and come in behind us. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overmatch on arguably 1 E3 and then another E3. So we have a 7 on 1 and then a 7 on 1. So we're just going to take this. And sometimes you really have to urge people to go because nobody really wants to take 750. So I'm going to take a hit there. Otto's going to take 2 hits. But you can see he's diving for cover. He's getting to the corner, trying to keep his tank alive. Now, a big key when you're attacking through this road once you've taken it is you need to get tanks in the windows because they can support this line. And then everybody else has to wedge up against what looks like some sort of town hall looking thing here. Whatever this building is. The reasoning for that is if we get along this wall, the enemies have to come all the way out. They have to come around the corner fully. If we try and back away from it and we're poking on them, they have the advantage. What we're trying to do is use the cap pressure to force the enemies to come into us. So we're going to get a lucky shot there on the E3. We're up 6-0. But you can see the super heavies have now turned the corner. They're actually ignoring the E3. So it was a great play there by Busy and Penguin. They backed all the way off rather than pushing themselves into the super heavies. And now the super heavies have no choice but to go after the IS-7. Meaning that the E3s will now get side shots. The Chieftains are there tearing away the mouse, and you can see here, we're getting against the wall. Now, we could do a little bit better of not poking, but overall, we're up 7,300 health. So, there's the artillery strike. Now, you can see that, while we do want to get against the wall, it had occurred to me, which I didn't mention earlier, is that they hadn't dropped strikes. Now, when you press yourself against a wall and they drop a strike on you, it makes it very, very difficult to get out of that strike without getting hit. Now, even 1 point of damage or a module hit is going to reset the cap circle. So that is why I sort of stood in the middle, where they couldn't quite hit me, but I was still enough behind the building, far enough away from the building, that I could still back out of the strike, and I'm going to back out with 3 seconds to spare. Fortunately, everybody else is going to have to get out, and that's a bit of my fault for not asking if the arty strike had been dropped. Now, I thought there was a Chieftain behind me. It was just my teammate who I think was trying to get a shot at the VK. And now this is what we call free play mode. We're up almost 10,000 health. I just tell people, do what you have to do to win this game. I find that excessive calling, when a win is fairly guaranteed, is nothing more than an annoyance for players who have been following my call for 3 minutes already and would like nothing more than to go, kill, and do whatever they want. So that's going to be the call now. Now I'm trying to use Cetus here to hide behind. You could say, that's not being a good team player, but I'm a one-shot, he's full health, and that's the way we play as a team. So we're going to wrap this battle up as Ripmaster and Gunny both finish off a mouse each. We get a couple more. 1 mouse in the south here, and this game we are now up to 15,000 health. And that should be about it. So I hope this battle breakdown really showed you some of the benefit to overloading the 2-3 line, as well as some of the flexibility that we had to have by having to not push up into the B6 corner on cap, and instead rotating those tanks to ensure that we could get the IS-4s out. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know. If you've run anything like this, or you know how you might beat this strat, also feel free to comment that, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.